Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2022 horror film Barbarian. Now, this is one of those films that I am really conflicted on. On one hand, I thought Zach Cregger did a excellent job directing this movie. I thought it had a nice, creepy mood and atmosphere to it. I did like some of the aspects of the film's concept, in particular, Mother. Even though I think that ultimately was kind of a miss when it comes to how the character was ultimately handled when it comes to the script. And there's some good practical effects. There's some nice bits of gore at times. The score has its moments. There were some good performances. But it's a film that I'm conflicted on because to me, the narrative doesn't work. It's a film that has a script that has these good ideas, but it just doesn't write things in a way where it all clicks. It's one of those things where it just comes across as very uneven to me and very scatterbrained. And that's really why this is one of those movies where it's not really a rant because I can't say that I hated this film because there's enough things that about Barbarian that I liked, but it's definitely one of those more conflicted reviews where I just spend the majority of the video just trying to think of how to get my thoughts across in a way that isn't so all over the place. I don't know what it is about these kind of conflicted movie reviews, but they are some of the hardest for me to do because there are things about it that I like, but then there's other things about it that don't work. And so I have to just kind of come to a conclusion as to what are these things that make it so the film doesn't work for me and why. And that can be a challenge sometimes, but I am going to give it my best shot. So, Barbarian is directed by Zach Cregger, who also wrote the film. Zach Cregger is someone you might be aware of if you're a fan of the sketch comedy group Whitest Kids You Know. He was a member of that group, and he co-wrote and I think co-directed Miss March, which is a film that the Whitest Kids You Know crew was behind. I saw that years ago. I thought it was pretty forgettable and not really that funny, but it was average, I guess. And this is technically his first feature film debut because he co-directed, I think, Miss March, but he wasn't really the main director of that. And for a first-time filmmaker in the horror genre, Zach Cregger did a amazing job. Like, I thought that his direction in this was dynamic, it was very strong, it was very consistent. There were some moments that were pretty ballsy in terms of the camera movement and some of the techniques he was using. Did a great job utilizing angles and zooms and all of these other things when it comes to filmmaking and directing. The way that he handled lighting was also really solid. All in all, it was a terrific job, well done by Zach Cregger when it comes to the direction. His direction was so good in this that I honestly can't wait to see what he has up his sleeve next. Like, what are you going to direct next? He's another director to me that instantly is showing that he's very talented behind the camera, but he should just stay behind the camera because the script is really where this film shows its cracks. I don't feel Zach Cregger, the writer, was really able to find the right door to consistent, cohesive screenwriting success for me personally. I know a lot of people feel otherwise, and if you do, that's cool, that's fine. I have no issues with that. In fact, if you love this film, if you think it's a great movie, if you think it's like one of the best films of the year, or one of the best horror films you've seen in years, I think that's great too, because different opinions are what keeps this world interesting, and I am always for them. And hell, just because I'm not a big fan of this doesn't mean I don't recommend this film to people who are curious about it. If you want to see this movie and you've been curious about it for a long time, or just after seeing the trailer, or just after hearing the hype, go see it. Your opinion on it could be dramatically different than mine. So I highly encourage people to still go see this film if it's something that interests you. That being said, this script is wildly uneven. This is a screenplay that really does suffer from the conceptual process behind it. This is a script that started off as like the first 30 minutes of the movie, written on a whim by Zach Cregger after he read some book and read a section in the book about how women see red flags in society and in relationships, and men undermine them, underappreciate them, and ultimately don't believe them. So he decided to write the first 30 minutes of this film that he didn't even have a title for yet, didn't even have a full plot for yet. He just decided to write 30 minutes of a film based around this idea of these red flags. And to me, that's a flawed foundation, because you were writing a film based on the conceptual process that you would use to write an essay. I'm so tired of this. I'm tired of writers, specifically screenwriters, writing films based around how you would write an essay for college. This is a film. This is not an essay. Essays don't have to worry about characters and narratives and stories, subplots, any of that. They don't have to worry about that. You can tell a story with an essay for sure, but it's definitely not the same as telling a story through a screenplay. It's dramatically different. The two mediums cannot possibly be any more different. But we have these writers who, for whatever reason, decide to think that the approach you use for writing an essay is also the approach that you use to write a script. So he's got this thesis in mind of these red flags, and so he starts his process of writing his script based on that thesis. And inspiration can come from different places. And if this is a script that had a good plot and strong characters, and then he threw in this subtext, then it would be fine. But no, he started off writing the first 30 minutes with the sole purpose to push this agenda about these red flags. Then, only then, he decides to fill in the blanks, write and flesh out the characters, continue on the script, throw in the mother character, throw in the owner character, and then throw in all these swerves to try to connect the narratives together, because he's not that experienced of a writer. This is the kind of shit that inexperienced writers do all the time. I'm going to throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. That's exactly what happens here. I'm going to throw these swerves at you and see if they stick. And for a lot of people, they stuck. For me, they stunk. So, yeah, the conceptual process right from the beginning was flawed. And it made it so the script was uneven, because it starts off uneven. If you start something in an uneven fashion, it's fairly likely that the finished product is also going to be uneven. But what's crazy is the first 30 minutes, which were essentially the brain storming moment for Barbarian, are the best parts of the movie. The scenes that involve Keith and Tess, and them reacting to being double booked at this Airbnb, and them forming this connection and this relationship with one another. It's very charming and cute and fun, despite the fact that things were initially kind of creepy and a little uh on edge until the two started to get to know one another. Those are the best parts of the movie. It's the stuff with Tess and Keith. And then it's still effective when Tess is locked in the basement and pulls the rope and decides to go look around in the room, even though it could have been more effective if she just didn't even go in the room to begin with. I mean, she says that she's not going to go in there, and then she goes in there anyway because she's bored. So that just makes her come across as a total fool. Uh, but I get it because you need to have a character in this movie go into the secret room because otherwise, why is it there? So even that, I could kind of, I can give a pass. But once you get to Keith acting completely out of character, saying he doesn't believe Tess and trying to mansplain to her, then he goes down there and gets trapped, and then he dies, and then you get to the swerve of the century where it then shifts focus completely to AJ, Justin Long's character, driving on the highway. That's when the film just completely falls apart for me. This is where the film gets great for some people. This is where the film gets bad for me. Because this is a swerve. Because this is a swerve that is not effective at all for me personally. I didn't see it coming, but that's not necessarily always a good thing. Some guy could break down my door and piss in my mouth on camera, and that wouldn't be a good thing, now would it? Might be for some people because that might be their kink, but that's a whole other thing entirely. But what I'm saying is, it's not inherently a good thing just because something unexpected happens. There's a lot of unexpected things that happen in certain films, and they are derided for them, rightfully so. There are other things that happen in other stories where this happens and this occurs. But for some reason, there are a lot of people that just think that automatically by default, if something is unexpected or surprising, it's good. And I don't get that at all. Because just because I was swerved and it was a successful swerve initially, that doesn't mean it's a good thing. Especially when the swerve leads to you shifting the focus away from the two most effective, strong characters in the film, and Keith and Tess, and then focusing things on AJ, who is an insufferable asshole. Did not like this character. He uses gay slurs. He calls the woman that he definitely sexually assaulted a lying bitch. He is a total jerkwad, jerk off asshole. There's no reason for me to care about this character. There's no reason for me to like him. And I think that's the point, but it doesn't work for me. When you have two strong characters and you shift the focus to a character who's an unlikable piece of shit, the emotional investment is zero. There's no reason for me to be emotionally invested or connected to the story anymore. So I don't care about him going back to the Airbnb. I don't care about him getting canceled. I don't care about him in his scenes of measuring the tunnels. Don't give a shit about any of that. I don't care about him acting like a wannabe tough guy with a butter knife either. Don't give a shit about these scenes. So now I am completely lost. The investment that I had in this film is gone. Now now things are shifting focus to this character that I don't like, and I'm bored. Then it tries to make up for it by shifting the focus back to Tess, who's now a survivor, who's acting like a baby to mother in order to survive, and is trying to get AJ to do the same, but he refuses. And of course, that leads to supposedly terrifying scenes of saggy breasts and breastfeeding, which I don't get this. This is a recent trend where these writers seem to think that saggy old titties is the scariest shit ever. I don't get it. Wasn't scary in X, and it's not scary here. And neither is like a giant baby bottle with a big ass nipple. Like, that's not scary either. That's about as scary as the turkey baster full of cum and Don't Breathe, which wasn't scary at all in any capacity, in my opinion. That was ridiculous. Just like the giant baby bottle. And if one swerve wasn't enough, here's another neck breaking swerve. Now we're in the 80s. Now we're with this fucking crusty old guy fucking shopping for diapers at a supermarket. Some really scintillating, exciting stuff. And I know why it's there. It's to establish a prologue or setup for the owner, who is this raping, sadistic piece of shit who created Mother due to incest. But it's still a swerve that, at the end of the day, is not even remotely necessary. You could just have the backstory of this owner be shown through newspaper clippings on the wall, in his room, underground, and through the videotapes. You could have AJ and Tess watch one of these tapes. You don't have to show what happens. You could just have the audio of what happens on the tape, and you could show a little image of him when he was young. But you don't have to show him actually doing the act. And you just show the reactions of Tess and AJ being horrified. There you go. You got the origin now. You didn't need the prologue or the prequel in the 80s with really exciting scenes of shopping for fucking diapers. You didn't need that. So, yeah, you have that swerve, and then it decides to shift its focus back to Tess and AJ trying to survive, Mother, and throughout this whole series of events, there's no reason to trust AJ, no reason to like him. So when it tries to pull another swerve near the end, where he tries to leave Tess for dead so he can preserve his own ass, that wasn't shocking to me. Because I never trusted him, and I never believed that he was innocent. And the script did no reason. The script gave you no reason to think that he was innocent as well. You have other things that are clunky in this script, like how it's trying to make you sympathize for Mother, and I get it. The way that she was created was horrible and awful, but at the same time, she's just as much of a monster as the guy that created her. She killed Keith for no reason. There's no reason to kill him. He didn't do anything wrong. Then she busts through this homeless guy's wall when he's hanging out at the water tower. She's never attacked him, never done anything to this guy for years, but just because the screenwriter wants to pull another swerve out of his ass, she busts out the wall and then rips his arm off and kills him. You didn't need that. That's another thing that was unneeded. Why did that have to happen? Just to have another moment to add to the body count. But it undermines what you're trying to do, where you're trying to make the audience sympathetic to Mother. So then you have that scene at the end where Tess has to kill her, and it becomes an emotionally strong scene. It's not, though, because she killed a homeless dude for no reason, and she killed Keith for no reason. So she's also a monster. So no, I don't have this high amount of sympathy for Mother, despite how awful it is when it comes to how she was born or how she was created. And it's just so frustrating because you're like, you didn't even have to do some of these things. You didn't have to kill Keith. You could have had Tess and Keith be the focus of the film, have them be the center of the underground horror, and have them work together to try to survive. And that would have helped the film because those two are the most effective and strong characters. It sure as fuck isn't AJ. You can still have AJ, and he could be one of the prisoners of Mother. You could have a line of dialogue talk about how he disappeared and so on. And you could have the stuff about him being canceled. and you can have him say that he's innocent. You can do all that through lines of dialogue between these characters. And then you could have this whole should we trust AJ or should we not dynamic throughout the rest of the film as the three of them are trying to survive the underground horror. And there's a few other things you could do, but I'm not going to go into detail on that. I'm just going to say that it was a mistake. It was a mistake to kill Keith and then shift the focus to AJ, despite how much of a effective swerve it might have been and how surprising it was, because it ultimately hurt the narrative. Because now the focus is shifted to AJ, who's nowhere near as strong of a character and nowhere near as likable. So just keeping Keith alive and having Tess and Keith essentially be together at the end of the movie, that would make this film a film that I would like. Even with some of the issues that I do have with the movie. If you just made that simple change, I would like the movie more. And the story would be a lot more effective because it wouldn't be as overly reliant upon these swerves that are so superficial and don't really necessarily have any lasting impact. When you think about it, if you love these swerves and you think they're so great, well, are they as great the second time around? No. Because that's what happens when it comes to twists or swerves like this. And it's not because I want things to play it safe. It's not because I can't handle a different kind of horror movie. Some of my favorite horror films are from filmmakers and writers who are well known for being wild, crazy, inventive, off the wall, and total oddballs. Frank Henenlotter, who directed Frankenhooker and Basket Case and Brain Damage, three films that I really, really enjoy. Larry Cohen, who did The Stuff, the It's Alive films, Q, The Winged Serpent. He's a filmmaker that's known for doing these wild, weird, creative stuff. God Told Me To is another one. I even like films like Street Trash or The Suckling or The Children from back in the day. So there's a lot of stuff that I like that is very different. So it's not one of those things where I can't handle different things. I mean, this is a reference to Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. That's a very different kind of horror film. So it's not like I can't handle different horror films and I just want the same thing. No, I don't. I just want good horror films, not mid horror films. So, yeah, this script, it didn't suck. It just didn't live up to its full potential. It's just disappointing. And it also wastes the good performances from the cast. I mean, Georgina Campbell was really good. She was great as Tess. I thought she delivered a really solid, strong performance. She was believable when it comes to the scenes when she needed to be strong and kind of badass. She was also equally as plausible when it comes to the scenes where she's being a little bit more vulnerable, where she's having these moments of vulnerability, or these moments when she's happy or starting to form a bit of a relationship with Keith, when she's starting to fall for him. So, yeah, I thought it was a really good performance. And it's just a shame that the script just wasn't on par with what she brought to the table. I feel the same way for Bill Skarsgård as Keith. I thought his performance was great. It was honestly the best performance I've seen from Bill Skarsgård to date, because I was never impressed with his work in It. I thought his Pennywise was awful. Sounded like a demented, cracked out Winnie the Pooh, and I couldn't take it seriously in any scene. Here, though, I thought he was really good. He did a good job making you think that maybe he's not somebody you should trust. But then once you realize that he's relatively harmless, he really uh, started to charm your pants off. I thought it was a very charming, very likable, very charismatic performance. And I thought he and Georgina Campbell had amazing chemistry. That's why when that is split up, when that chemistry, that bond is split up, it was so It's disappointing. It was such a letdown because you're like, great build up, great start to this connection between the two, and then you just rip it apart. You just rip it apart in favor of something that is nowhere near as effective. And that's where we get to Justin Long as AJ. Justin Long was good. He was good in the role he was asked to play. He played a good asshole. I did not like this character. I hated him. I hated this guy. That was the whole point. But that doesn't mean that I liked the character or I liked the performance. But I will say this. He did his job well. I'm not going to blame Justin Long. He did what he was asked to do. Matthew Patrick Davis, he was magnificent as the mother. He deserves a ton of credit for playing that character. Under all that makeup and everything, he was menacing. He was actually genuinely interesting in a lot of different ways. It was a performance where was flat out visceral in a lot of ways when it comes to the scenes where mother is like ripping people up, but also there were some moments where it was kind of tragic, and I think he did a really good job just showcasing all these different emotions of this character. Richard Brake, he's great. He's great in anything as some kind of sadistic uh, asshole character. So he was good here as the owner or the mother's father. And there's a few other actors and actresses, like Kate Bosworth is in it in a little bit role. Sarah Paxton is the nursing video narration voice. She was also the assistant and played a character named Megan. Um, Kurt Brandhauer plays Doug. I think that was like the homeless guy. Zach Cregger actually plays a character named Everett, and he plays the voice of David in the film. So it's a good cast. I mean, the main major cast, the main players are Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgård, and Justin Long, and Matthew Patrick Davis, and they all do a good job. So the cast is good. That's another thing that is absolutely worthy of praise to me is the cast. It's got some great cinematography by Zach Cooperstein, especially when it comes to like the shots of the Airbnb at night with the rain, or even some of the shots of the Airbnb inside of it, or definitely the sequences in the tunnels. It's a really nice looking film. Even the shots at the water tower. The editing by Joe Murphy, I thought it was well edited too. There's certain sequences where the suspense and the tension gets dialed up because of the editing, and a lot of the other sequences involve mother like ripping arms off or tearing people's heads open were edited in a way where it definitely had maximum effectiveness. And the music by Anna Dubrick, actually it's Drub, I think it's a Drubbish. It was a good score. It was a good score, very synth heavy, but it fit the film. There was some weird chordal stuff in it that also did enhance the weird surreal nature of the movie at times. So yeah, it was a good score. So there are good elements here. Some really good elements in this film. The direction, the the performances by the cast, the cinematography, the editing, the music, but it's a film that ultimately does not work for me because the path that Zach Cregger took as a writer just led to dead end after dead end. And it just hurts because there was a good, if not great, horror film here. But Zach Cregger was never able to unearth it. He was never able to dig it up. And despite that, I'm still glad that I saw it. I'm still glad that I saw this film at least once for a lot of the other elements that I mentioned that I did like about it. But it's still one of those films that I'm just so conflicted on. I not only saw it once, but I saw it twice just to see if I could ultimately like it, because I want to like this film. I wanted to like this film so bad, and it just it just ultimately wasn't able to do it for me. It just comes down to the script. It comes down to those damn swerves. And they sucked for me. And for others, they were great. They were fantastic. They were wonderful. And they might be that way for you. But for me, they sucked. And they ultimately kind of sucked the life and the energy and the enthusiasm that I had for the film out of the picture. So it's just one of those things where, yeah, it's a film that I definitely don't hate, but I can't say that I'm a fan of it either. And it just comes down to the unevenness of the screenplay. So anyway, thanks for watching my review of Barbarian, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.